Good morning, good afternoon or good evening everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another installment in the K&SV and Scenic Valley Railroad build. During this video I will tackle several different tasks on the upper level of the railroad, including adding a lot of foam tops, getting the bench work finished and also marking out all the track locations for the main yard. As I was editing it, I really wasn't sure what to call the video, so for those of you who would like a little extra involvement in my YouTube channel, be sure to stay tuned until the end. So without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and get busy.
So I think what I will do this afternoon is work on this area over the top of the helix. I already have a piece that I cut when I put in the one next to it, and that will be the side support of this frame that will cover over most of the helix. There is an access hole in behind the backdrop. So basically I've got to build two more of these brackets, all at exactly the same height, and then I can put a frame in between them. It's fairly straightforward actually, especially considering what I've been doing the last few days. Compared with the complexities of this area in front of it, it's a piece of cake. Well, here is the basis of that frame installed. It's only been a short time. I told you it would be straightforward compared to what I've been doing the last few days. This large open space at the back will be behind the backdrop and will stay open. It will give stand-up access to the rear of the helix. The front of it will all be filled in. I haven't worked out exactly what I need in the way of tops yet. It will get a sheet of 1/2-inch plywood, but I've still got to figure out the shape of it. And then most of it will get 1-inch foam, with the front part getting 1/2-inch foam, where the locomotive spurs are at a slightly lower level than the rest of the yard or the industrial spurs behind it. Well, this is a lot sooner than I expected to get back to you, because I've had another change of plan. I know I need outriggers both on the middle of the front and on the middle of that side. And that is why I have this cross brace in here, to stop this one twisting if the end of the outrigger is loaded. But at the moment I don't know how long they need to be. I know the yard lead that wraps around inside the main line is intended to be attached to the helix rather than to the yard frame. So I need to get that installed first, and then I will come back to finish this frame. Anyway, since I don't know exactly what is required in that regard, I'm going to go in now and work it out, and I'll come back out tomorrow and continue. Well, today is Friday, July 1st. I didn't get out here at all yesterday because I was not feeling at all well. Anyway, on Wednesday I got this area sorted out. Today I am going to continue modifying this end. I got the plywood sub roadbed raised up 1/2 inch and this splice plate in. I've got to back out those screws before I continue, get the 1/2-inch foam on this piece, and then readjust these grade profiles to match the new elevation. Well, this piece of foam has been installed and the grades in this corner have been adjusted and they're now just about perfect. I've taken the opportunity to put an 1/8-inch step in at that point, because somewhere along there I've got to go from thin roadbed to thick roadbed, and that is as good a place as any to do so. Anyway, before I can put any blue foam on top of the other yard area, I've got to get rid of all the crap that's up there. And the biggest thing stored up there at the moment is the workbench that goes below it. So I'm going to take the opportunity to install that down here now, where the trash can is. And not only will it get it out of the way, but it will also give me somewhere to park stuff. So let me do that and I will be right back. Well, that is the workbench installed underneath the railroad. It's in place about as permanently as it can be in this workshop. Eventually this end will be attached to the wall, so this leg here will not be required, nor will this support that you see in the camera now because both the work table and the railroad above it will be attached to ledger board on the wall. Actually, I've been calling it a workbench, but in actual fact the real workbench is just opposite the aisleway where the fan is now, in this corner. This is just an alcove where he's going to have his spray booth. The vent pipe will just come out of the back, go through the benchwork, under the helix, and will be vented out through the wall in this corner of the room, behind where my saw horses are stored. And what we haven't decided yet is whether we're going to just place that one as it is on the workbench, or whether we are going to extract the guts from that spray booth and build a bigger one in this area. As I say, we haven't decided that yet. Before I finish the day, I will go and get the existing one, place it here, take a photograph, and let the customer decide. But now that it's installed, I can clear the rest of the junk off the top area and get the foam down. So I'm going to start on that this afternoon. Right now it's time for lunch, so I will see you later. Don't go away. Well, here is the Micromark folding spray booth set up on this bench. This just gives an idea of how much space there is around it. I mean, obviously it is possible to build a much bigger spray booth in the area just by leaving the mechanism and the filter where it is and replacing the folding housing with a much larger tapered one made of wood. So those are the choices that the client has. I'm going to shoot him an email this evening and then basically build whatever he requests. But for now I'm just going to pack this up again and get back to work on the railroad above. So I'm just going to take a walk around the shop. This video is showing the progress as of the end of July 1st, 2022. As we can see, all the foam tops are installed. There's the peninsula, the long straight bits along the back don't get foam sheet, they just get the road bed, and the foam sheet continues again here all the way around to this joint here. And I haven't worked out exactly what I need in the way of benchwork in this area. I think what I need to do is get the track plan positioned accurately before I can continue with that. I think it is Tuesday the 5th today, and I have got part of the full-size track print laid out. I wanted to make sure that the Walther's turnouts that I'm using for this curved crossover in this corner actually fit. I have every confidence in the Fast Track's turnouts that I'll be able to make them work, even in critical curve locations. Worst case scenario, being solder construction, I can just pop the wood ties off and adjust the curve if I need to. The Walther's turnouts, I can't do that because they are plastic tie webs. And it looks as though the two through routes are good enough. The crossover route, I have to make a slight adjustment. After trimming them to the right length, I will have to cut the tie web to straighten out the crossover route slightly on both turnouts. Well, I now have the central portion of the yard taped down in the correct place, and I've just started cutting and tracing the track plan. On the front four tracks, the two main lines, I get 1/4 inch foam road bed. On the two arrival departure tracks, I get 1/8 inch foam road bed. The others are laid directly on the pink foam. So these first four tracks, I need to mark the front edge of the foam strips. Once I get past the first four tracks, I will then be marking the track center line instead. So I've got to remember to make that changeover at the appropriate point. I'm only going to do as far as the benchwork joint for now, because when I get round to the end, it's more important to get the position accurate in the other direction. And if that means that I have to add or delete inches from the yard at this point, that really doesn't make any difference. From first positioning, I think I have to cut across that joint and spread the track by about 1 inch. Anyway, this isn't the end of the yard that I'm doing at the moment. I need to get the more complicated front end done as it comes off the helix. And once this is all marked out, then I can figure out what I need in the way of bench work over the top of the helix to support these spurs. So let me go away and quietly get on with that, and I'll check in with you again later. Well, I have now marked out the main yard ladder. All the black lines are track center lines, and the short heavy lines across it are the approximate throw bar locations for the turnouts. The front 4 tracks, that is the 2 main lines and the 2 AD tracks, already have the roadbed installed, because as I mentioned earlier, I had to mark the front edge of the roadbed rather than the center line, and I didn't want to get mixed up. So that's why I put the roadbed in as I drew it. You may recall I mentioned a couple of videos ago about the 1/16 of an inch roadbed by Silly Winks. Well, if you notice, you can see several little tiny steps because I inserted short pieces of that so that I can get it down from the 1/4 inch to pink foam level in 4 1/16 inch steps instead of 2 1/8 inch steps. That makes it a whole lot easier to shim up the track and make up the differences with the gap filling adhesive. Well, that is the rest of this frame, this benchwork section filled in. All the turnouts at the back are marked. So now at my leisure I can work out what I need in the way of framing for this area, or I can work the other way, mark out this board and all the way around the end. That will be a task for tomorrow, or one of those things will be a task for tomorrow. I'm too hot to continue right now. I didn't get out here till late. I need to get out here tomorrow morning fairly early, but I had a whole lot of errands and a doctor's appointment to take care of this morning. So it's another half day, but it's a good half day. So don't go away. I will check in with you again tomorrow. Well, I've now got the rest of the yard taped out in the correct place. It's now just a continuation of what I did yesterday, making sure I get the foam roadbed in the under the first 4 tracks, and then everything else just marking out center lines. As you can see, I ended up with about a 2-inch stretch, and that put this area in the right place relative to the edge of the benchwork. I did have to lightly belt sand the end of the blue foam because it was thicker than 1/2 inch, but that's no big deal, it won't make any difference. I'm just about ready to turn the camera off again and continue work. I'll check in with you again later after I finish walking into the post. Well, I have now completely marked out the yard and got all the foam roadbed in all the way to the end. On the main line it continues all the way around the circuit. On the branch line it stops here because I've still got to work out this bridge in this corner, and then once it gets to the curve at the other end of the room, it's all back to marking it out on the blue foam again. For the main area of the yard where I had all those parallel tracks, I didn't use the cut paper method. I just marked the end and then draw them on with a straight edge because it's a lot easier. You'll be able to see me do that in the time-lapse video that I'm going to most likely release later this week. Anyway, I now have to change tack and get back to bench work and figure out what I need in the way of bench work for this area. The flat part is straightforward. It's just 1/2 inch plywood and a mixture of 1/2 inch and 1 inch foam. The only awkward bit is figuring out what to do for the yard lead. And I think in an earlier video, or it might have been earlier in this one, I said something about having it attached to the helix. I'm now thinking that it should probably be attached to this frame and just overhanging the helix. I'm really not sure. I'm going to do the flat bit first and then figure out how to continue. Well, I've been working on this area for a couple of hours. It's actually further advanced than it may look because the plywood top has been cut. I've just removed it to work on the framing underneath. I have added the outriggers this side and that side, and I've cut down these corners there and on the other side. That's because I need to be able to tilt that frame to get it in underneath the yard lead, which is remaining attached to the helix all the way around. Here at this end, it can just be lifted out and dropped in, and that's why I need a little bit of tolerance at that end to allow for the tilt. This piece of sub roadbed for the yard lead is permanently attached, and I have the other two pieces, or the next two pieces, cut. There'll be a little piece which has to go in there attached to this top frame because the helix piece ends here, but I will cut that later once I've got everything else installed. For the time being, the next step is to bolt this frame on. I'm going to do it before I attach the top because it'll be easier. Put 2 bolts in there, get the top screwed down, and then cut foam pieces to go above that. Most of it will be 1/2 inch, and I'm going to have to piece it together because I don't have any sheets big enough. And then the bit in front with the 2 engine service tracks will be 1/2 inch. So let me get on with all of that, and I'll check in with you again later. Well, this area is just about done. I still have to put foam roadbed for the yard lead, but I'm not going to do that right now because I've got a whole load of temporary screws that have to be backed out, and I don't want to risk covering them. And also, when this clamp's been removed, I can fill in that last little bit of plywood there. But I will do that tomorrow morning. It won't take me long. Well, I started off this morning by finishing up all the little bits and pieces that I didn't get quite finished yesterday. So you can see the bench work and foam roadbed for the yard lead is now finished. I realised there was a block missing, there was a support missing along here, and it was a bit bouncy. That's why that block is glued in there. And that screw that's beside it, it's just taking the place of a temporary clamp because there's no way to get a clamp in that location.
Well, that's all for this week. But before I sign off, I would like to give my viewers an opportunity for a little involvement in my channel. As I was editing this video, I really wasn't sure what to call it. So if you think you have a good idea for what I should name this video, then please feel free to enter it in a comment below. I guess we could call this a mini contest, with first prize being that I rename the video according to your suggestions. Anyway, that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed the show, and hope to see you again next week. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.